Okay, here we go. Nice and quiet.
Sound speeds, camera rolling.
Holding for sound. Last looks. Calling for last looks.
And set and action.
I need to swap batteries.
You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome to Making Movies is Hard, the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I am Alrik Brissell, the founding host of the podcast. I've been making films since high school and have over 10 years of experience working on sets, starting as a production assistant, and I worked my way up to producing and now directing. I have served on 7 feature films and countless shorts as a crew member, and commercials and corporate videos as well. And then last year, I produced a horror feature right before the pandemic, and I'm now just finishing up post on my first feature film as a writer-director, The Alternate.
I'm Liz Manischel. I'm a writer, director, producer, and casting director with 2 features under my belt and 1 shooting this summer. I am a former film critic and current distribution consultant who used to manage the creative distribution initiative at Sundance.
And this week we have director Kevin Lewis on the show to talk about his latest film, Willy's Wonderland, starring the legendary Nicolas Cage, which was, a really fantastic conversation about one hell of a crazy, insane movie. I mean, you love this conversation, right, Liz?
Well, yes, I think it was a slow burn of a conversation because I think at first maybe Kevin was like a little shy, but by the end of it, I really felt like we connected with him and I saw the love he has for film. And I actually just like, when I think of him, I think, oh, Kevin. Yeah. I want him to do well. I like him a lot.
Well, I mean, talk about passion and talk about dedication. I mean, that was his 7th film is Willy's Wonderland, and he hadn't had a film come out since like 2009 or something like that, or 2007. So he took it was like 10 years of development in other features and trying to get features made and fail and things falling apart, and then trying to get a feature made and then things falling apart. And then Willy's Wonderland apparently took years to get off the ground itself. Like I think he started on it in like 2017 or something. So yeah, it's really just goes to show you, it's like, even if you've done 6 features, you still need to like hustle and work hard to get your next movie made. So to all you out there who want to make films, get ready. It's a long haul. So we're going forward with our new order of things. We're going to jump right into our conversation with Kevin, but don't go away, because after the interview, we've got another Get Shorty featuring friend of the show, Nicole DeMenses. She's got a new web series called Dating in the Zombie Apocalypse, and we're going to talk about the first episode of the web series. And we've also got a new installment of You've Got Mail. So yeah, don't go away, but let's get to it. Here's Kevin Lewis talking about crazy old Nic Cage fighting animatronic demon Chuck E. Cheese-like creatures. Welcome, Kevin Lewis, to Making Movies is Hard. We're going to start with our rapid fire questions. I'm just going to go off right in the first one. How many days did you shoot Willy's Wonderland?
20.
Oh, wow. I'm anticipating a certain answer from you here, but what was the rough budget, if you could talk about it?
About 5 million.
I was expecting you to say that you weren't allowed to share any information with us whatsoever, so thank you.
Well, the thing is that's at the beginning, but then, as you know, things take off, you know what I mean? So it was 5, but I think it's gone up a little bit. But it looks good, I think, for that.
Oh,
for 20 days. We were running and gunning big time.
And then how long did you spend working on the film from being brought onto it to its coming out, in the next couple weeks?
So Jeremy Davis brought the script to me, and Geo Parsons wrote a great script. It was about 2 years, 2.5 years, almost 3.
How big was your crew?
We had a decent sized crew. It was probably, I'd say about 75, 100 people, when you talk about transpo and everything. But we had a good crew. Georgia was great. That's where we shot it.
And then compared to all your other projects you've made, how difficult was this one to make?
Well, making movies is hard, right? So it's very difficult. But, we had a good support team. The producers were great. Jeremy Davis got the script, and we got the script into shape. And he brought on a couple of producers that helped, put it all together. So
Can we talk about that a little bit more, like unpack that, just so you know a little bit more context? Alrik and I are usually writer directors, like originating the project, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of experience in a script being brought to me. That's like a whole nother level. So did Jeremy go to your representation, or just were you pals, or how did the script actually get into your hands?
We were pals, and he took the script to me and wanted to know if I was interested. And I read it. I thought Gio did a great job. It was such a unique story, and it reminded me of like the movies of the 80s. That was the time I grew up in, and that's why it has a very 80s vibe to it. I did that on purpose. Movies like Evil Dead, stuff like that. I just love those movies. Jeremy was a great partner on this.
Talk to us a little bit about like how that works. So like you got the script. Like, did you always think it was going to be Nic Cage, or like, how'd you like land on him for the lead role?
He was the only one in my mind, and Jeremy felt the same way. So we took it to him, and he immediately liked the script. And
I was just say, like, okay, you say things like took it to him. Like, how do you take it to him? Like, how does that work? Like, do you just have an agent who sends it to him? Like, do you just, how does that happen?
Well, we have to get, on making movies, you have to get the script into shape, and you have to make a financial offer, so we had to do all that. So we had to raise, the money, try to find the money for it. So, when we take it to him, we make a financial offer. And he immediately liked it, and he was on board the whole, very loyal. We had startups, and then it didn't happen. Then it started up again, and so Nick remained loyal on the movie, always wanted to do it.
Let's get more details of that. So, like you said, you raised the money. Like, did you raise the full budget before you made the offer to Nick, or just a partial budget? Like, how did that happen?
Partial. Yeah, we raised money to get him to look at it, as an offer.
What did he say he was attracted to in the project? Like, was it the character? Was it the animatronics? Is it the genre? Like, what did you notice him responding to in the pitch?
He never did the movie like this before. He loved the animatronics thing. And I remember him saying, we don't get scripts like this much anymore. So I think he was harkening back to the 80s and 90s, of projects. And
then I just want to drill into what you said, like partial budget. Can you like talk about like what that was? Was that 50%? Was that like a quarter? Like how much do you have to actually have in hand? Do you say like, oh, I've raised $1 million towards a $5 million budget. Okay, Nic Cage, like here's a script. Are you in? Are you out? Well,
there's different ways of putting movies together, but like you have to have foreign sales, you get the domestic distributor, you get some private equity. So Jeremy kind of helped put all that together with the other producers.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about you as a director and you negotiating your credit and your fee as being a part of this whole package. So, because again, it's that director for hire situation, right? So,
sure.
The script is brought to you. Were you like, all right, I'll do, like, did you need convincing? Like, what happened for you in your negotiations?
No, I love the script, and I worked really hard on just whatever resources I had to help get it made with Jeremy. It was a very passionate project. It really was.
Yeah, and then they just work your fee into the budget basically once you've. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just watched the trailer, as I had said earlier, and it was amazing. Yeah. Congratulations.
Great.
But what I noticed about it was that there was no Nic Cage one-liners in the trailer. Are there Nic Cage one-liners in this movie, or did you not do that for this?
You got to just see the movie.
That was part of like what fueled my question about, why Nic Cage in the first place, because if it's a movie where the character doesn't talk very much and it's not really about lines, and that's like the thing that Nic Cage is known most for is his like crazy lines that his crazy deliveries. I mean, not to say that he isn't really great at everything else too, but I mean, I guess that was what the question was like, why was the decision made to keep his character talking less? But I guess maybe that's not necessarily the case. Maybe he talks a lot in part of the movie. I don't know. Anyway,
and it kind of has a vibe of a Man with No Name, Western.
I have like one expected Nic Cage question, and then I think we may move on and then come back to Nic Cage again
Okay.
later on.
Okay.
This is my only humble brag story I'm going to share, is that I once got to talk to John Turteltaub, who's like a hero of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that Nic Cage was so pleasant to work with, so secure, not troublesome. And I think someone might hear about Nicolas Cage and his eccentricities off screen and think, oh, he's got to be a handful. So I'm just curious if you can verify John Turteltaub's account.
Oh, he's absolutely right. Nick is an amazing man, amazing actor, performer, but an amazing man. I mean, he was there in the morning, working hard, doing stunts, never late, always worked up into the end, gave everything he had. He's an incredible guy. He was a great partner to be on with this movie.
Yay!
Just to follow up on that, like, is he, when he gets involved, like, is he giving lots of notes on the script? Is he giving like lots of feedback to you on like certain ideas he may have about the scene, or is he more like, just kind of going with like your direction? Like, what was that experience like?
We never had one disagreement on how to make the movie.
Wow.
And every night we would text each other or email each other and say, what do you think of this? And I'm thinking that, he did great. So, yeah, I mean, it went flawlessly. I mean, it's amazing.
I'm going to take us away from Nic Cage for a second.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about animatronics. I mean, I didn't know if some of I assume they're all animatronics. Maybe there's some puppet work in there that I don't know, because I'm just watching the trailer. I'm working on a project with puppets, so I'm aware of some variables that come into building a production schedule, but 20 days, massive name, looks like one location. How much did you have to pivot around the animatronics as you built your schedule?
Well, that was the whole key, was we had to start the animatronics early, because if we didn't, we'd be in Georgia and they wouldn't be done and we would be waiting around. So we had to start animatronics like 3 months before shooting, building the creatures. And Ken Hall did it. And he did an amazing job.
And then in terms of being on set with them, were you limited in your setups, or did you have to adjust camera to get the best angle? Are there things that are unanticipated that another filmmaker may not even be aware of in terms of working with animatronics?
I created the Willy's Bible. It was like 70 pages, and it was a shot list. And so every frame I shot listed. I had the whole thing, because this movie isn't a movie where it's like, okay, guys, what are we feeling today? No, it was a very particular way on how to make this movie. And so I knew I had to do that, prepare, and I stayed to the shot list.
And talking to that shot list, did you get it storyboarded, or do you do your own storyboards? Like, how did that work?
We got it storyboarded, and so the boards are great, but my DP and I go back and forth with him on the shot list. And then we had our boards. And
so when you get the boards back, are you and the DP looking over those together to approve them as a team? Or is it more like you've already talked to your DP about it and then you're just giving final approval on all the boards?
Yeah, final approval. I mean, we knew this movie inside and out. So we had the same vision going in. We want to make a punk rock movie, make it a rave, 2 a.m. rave. That was the vibe. I wanted to do this.
Wow.
Yeah, what is the genre? Is the genre, you talked about the nostalgia, and I'm getting an ethos. Is the genre creature horror, or what would you call this?
I call it popcorn horror. It's a horror, but it's more, like I said, in the 80s, like Return of the Living Dead, fun horror, Evil Dead even, I didn't want to go all intense on these animatronics. That I think that, I had to be very careful on how we shot it and how we lit it, because you have to believe that these things are, exist. And if you light it wrong or shoot it, in a different way, you may give the illusion up. And I didn't want that. So that's why I shot listed everything.
So it sounds like there's a good little bed of comedy going throughout the horror, is what I'm hearing.
Well, it's it's kind of, I had the actors play it real, it's really absurd. It's Nic Cage versus an animatronic weasel,
Yes.
Every time we would set up a shot and be like, is this too much? And I'd be like, it's Nic Cage versus Chuck E. Cheese. No, it's not. So there's a lot of Dutch angles in the movie. There's a lot of lens flares. I love lens flares.
Nice.
I want to make it otherworldly, just look different.
Going back to the animatronics, like, were they full animatronics? Like, did you have like people operating them from another room and they're like move on their own, or were there puppeteers underneath them? Like, how did that work?
They were suits, and then we had like pulleys in the arms that would move the eyes. Because if you look at Chuck E. Cheese, it's always the eyes, the servos, right? And so you had to get that right. So it would be stunt performers in these suits and moving with the eyes and hands. And then Ozzy was a puppet.
Oh, wow.
I'm so excited to find out who Ozzy's the weasel, I assume.
No, Ozzy, the ostrich.
Oh,
okay.
Gore. I'm sorry.
Of course.
So I'm curious about gore then. If this is kind of like this 80s, 90s throwback, it's probably doesn't have a massive amount of blood, but maybe I'm wrong. Did you have concerns about rating or having too much violence in the film, or was it all you could just go balls to the wall with the violence?
That's what I want. That's what we want. I think that's what everyone wants to see Nick do. Right? And Mandy, right?
Yeah.
Clara Space. And so, no, it was balls to the wall. I came up with the idea of the black oil, the black ooze. So instead of blood, black oil when these creatures get taken down.
That's awesome. That was my question. It's like, do these animatronic creatures bleed? And it sounds like they do, and it's black oil, and that's awesome. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of questions, but I think the thing I want to kind of get at is, like, you've had like a pretty well-rounded career. Like, I was just looking at your IMDb. You've been directing films for a long time, and you kind of got a big run going in the 2000s, and it seems like you haven't really stopped since then. So, I mean, I guess the question is, like, you getting brought this movie, is the reason why this movie got made partially because of your history of directing and the films that you've done? Like if you were into your second feature, like, would they have been able to sell this movie with you as the director?
That's a good question. Like I said, Jeremy brought me the movie, and he's a friend of mine, and he pushed hard for me to direct. He had my back on this film. So really, hats off to Jeremy Davis. He felt that I was the right guy to do it, and I loved the script. I thought Gio did a great job. It was a unique, different movie, and as you guys know, making movies is hard, and you gotta love it. You gotta love the passion. You gotta have the passion. You gotta have the energy, or it's just not worth it, And this movie was a unique film, and I knew it. If we did it right, it could be something.
And then, like, a quick follow-up to that. Oh, sorry, Liz.
Okay, follow up.
Like, were you aware, or was there ever a time where your not ability, but like you directing this movie was challenged by anybody involved? Like, was it ever a thing where you had to prove yourself, or was it more like Jeremy just had your back and, you were the guy from, the start?
I had to prove myself with some of the foreign sales company. So what we did was I cut a trailer and install it at AFM, and that trailer helped.
Dude, that's kind of crazy to me, because like after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 features, like you still have to prove yourself to the foreign sales. That seems insane to me.
Yep. Oh, it is.
Jesus Christ. Wow.
Well, I want to go back to those, like, piggybacking off what Alrik is saying. You've made these 7 features, and from what I can tell, they look very different. They kind of run the gamut in terms of genre and tone. One of the things we like to talk about in the show is like how you get from project to project, because it's kind of like it's kind of random, right? It's like the luck of the draw. So would you account for having so many films under your belt? Is it representation? Is it networking? Or how did you get from film to film? Is it, if you can answer that?
What's funny is I've been on some other movies that have not gotten, I was going to do a film in Korea, and it didn't get it was going to be greenlit, and then it collapsed. So it's funny, being part of the process. I feel sometimes I've been on more movies that haven't gotten made than the ones that have. But you got to just put your best foot forward, and you have to surround yourself with a good team. You got to have a vision, and you got to, work hard for that, and you got to show it to people and make them understand it. And that's the tough thing, especially with a movie like Willy's Wonderland. It could go a lot of different ways. I call it like a tightrope movie because it could be just terrible. But I think that we pulled it off. So.
And you shot before the pandemic, I'm guessing, right?
Yes, we wrapped February 28th. I came home March 1st.
God.
I know.
Wow.
Guys, I know.
Wow.
It was crazy.
I know that feeling. I wrapped a movie on March 7th in Tahoe, and we were hearing about South by Southwest getting canceled and everything, and like this suddenly feeling very real. And then we got back, and then I basically didn't leave my house when I got back from that movie.
It's crazy. And doing post during the pandemic was really hard. I was cutting up in LA, and then LA shut down. I had to leave, and it was difficult. But we got it. We made it through.
I want to press you on your answer a little bit about your career, because I think also sustainability of this industry is always in question. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us have to figure out how else can we make money, because we're either not getting a substantial fee as directors or producers or a day rate or whatever it is, or we're not getting, or our films are not profitable. So we're not getting like any, back end or whatever. Yeah. How have you been able to outlast in the industry? What has been funding your career?
Oh, I have 4 kids, and my wife's a nurse. And so we have a little business, like a med spa. And she's very good at what she does. So that's how we do it. And it's tough, when banking food on the table in the arts, it's very hard. We've all been through it. I remember I used to do the lunches in college, and I'd get the old reach around to the wallet. And then then the producer would be like, "Oh, I got it, Kevin." I'd be like, "Oh, okay, thank you." So, we've all been there. It's hard, but you know what? If you have passion, and you can figure it out. But the pandemic, it's just sad. I feel sad, for some actors now, and I talked to some of the actors off the movie, and they said there's not a lot of work right now. So hopefully, it's going to get better.
So to follow up what Liz was saying about your career, I see this, from your last film before Willy's Wonderland, The Third Nail, to now it's 9 years or something, almost 8 years in between. Yeah. So can you talk about what was happening in that 8-year gap?
I was part of a production company that was a 3D company, and that was what I was telling you about in Korea. We had a bunch of movies you're going to line up. I was going to direct the script. I had Mads Mikkelsen attached.
Wow.
And it was great. But like I said, things don't always follow through. And I've been on 4 or 5 projects that didn't get up and running. And so then my wife and I had these 2 little boys. I've got 2 teenagers, and then I got 2 little boys. We're crazy.
Wow.
And what's really cool is my kids, though, are so excited for Willy's Wonderland. My little boys are drawing Willy and all the Tito, and it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it took a while, and I knew that if I'm gonna go out and do a movie like Willy's, it's like I'm gonna have to put everything I have to it, because you never know if it's going to be your last movie. You just never know.
Wow. It sounds pretty amazing. It's you can have this huge gap, but it doesn't sound like you ever stopped working on projects. You always had a project going on that whole time, it sounds like, and then it just doesn't work out always. And I think that's a really important lesson for filmmakers to see and hear about, because it doesn't matter if you've directed 7 features, you could still just be in this development hell for God knows how long, until your next one comes.
Absolutely. There's just so many variables you can't control. You can only control what you can control. So it's hard, but you got to have passion, and you got to keep pushing, just always, work hard.
Well, I think an alternative, maybe not for all people, but an alternative is always to self-finance or crowdfund, or this kind of, alternative pathway. Did you ever consider anything like that? Or is it you just you're just studio all the way, or you're kind of establishment all the way, or how do you look at that option?
So I started out, making my first movie, The Method, and I made a movie called Downward Angel, and Blockbuster picked it up. At that time, that was a big deal, Blockbuster being this huge, company. I've seen how movies have changed the business, and there's so many things out now, like you say, with crowdfunding and things like that. I haven't done crowdfunding, but I kind of just feel like, since I've seen, I've done my movies all different ways. I shot The Drop. It was digital, and that was like, no one was shooting digital at the time,
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see, the evolution of movie making and independent cinema. And there's so many opportunities now, which is great. It's pretty incredible. You just got to have a good story to tell, But crowdfunding, I haven't done any crowdfunding. Just
because a lot of these bigger projects usually, I'm assuming, you tell me if I'm wrong, usually fall through due to financing, right?
Yep.
So if there's a way to have, money amassed through independent means, obviously, unless you're a millionaire and you're secretly running this med spa just for fun, I assume that's not an option.
No.
So then it would be kind of looking to outside to crowdfund. I guess I'm just curious if you ever got so frustrated that you were like, screw it. Like, I'm doing this a completely different way.
Sure, of course. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? There's not one way to make a movie. There's a lot of different ways. You just got to figure out what's right for you. And but it takes a lot of money and a lot of people, and people's time and their belief in the project, and things just happen. And it's like Willy's, we had it, and then it would start, and then it stopped, and it started, and it stopped, and there was a time where I was like, I can't deal with this. I put my script away and everything, and just said, you know what, I just gotta get it out of my head. And then all of a sudden it came back.
Wow.
And that's kind of, I feel, in this industry, that you have to be able to not want it as bad, because then it owns you, and you don't make right decisions when you're desperate.
And I assume that was Jeremy's work in terms of putting that last deal together.
Yeah, Jeremy. Yeah.
So I have a little small question. Are you based in Los Angeles, or where are you based out of?
Orange County.
So pretty close.
Yeah.
And then the other question is, after 7 features, did you have a representation at that point, or how did that work?
Guys, I've been through so many managers and agents. My first movie, The Method, I signed with ICM, right out of college. It's a merry-go-round. And representation's really changed now as well. There's people you can get to now on Twitter, and it's such a different world out there. I've gone to the agents and managers.
Do you have one now, or did you stop?
If I got to make sure it's the right one.
Wait, so you're like, you just basically at this point, you don't feel like it's necessary for your career? You're like, I don't want them unless I really gel with these people?
I think it's necessary, but it's got to be, we got to gel.
It's funny, just from my perspective as a person who's never had an agent or manager, or never really been approached by an agent or manager, it almost, it's like any agent or manager is like, oh my God, let's do it, But I think that seems a lot smarter to be like, no, like don't just rush into any relationship, because it really has to be like the right match, the right people.
Exactly, because they're representing you, and you got to be on the same page.
I just could go off in a whole new conversation just about representation. Because some people have said, friends and colleagues have said, you don't want to do the chasing, you want to be chased.
Yes.
And so as emerging filmmakers, yes, we're so enthusiastic to be chosen that we may make wrong decisions, and people may be exploiting us rather than us working together, because we may not be in demand as emerging, right? And then I've also heard that the majority of people's work is self-generated and actually not coming from representation. So I guess my curiosity with you is, when you had representation, did they help with casting? Did they help? Did you secure projects, or do you think that they really did help you get the job?
No, they wait and see what happens. But what's kind of interesting is right now we're in the course of the pandemic, but if we were at film festivals, that's where you go, right? Willy's would play, maybe a Midnight Madness show, and an agent could come and go, loved it. I don't know where that goes now. I think we're in a wild, wild west, of independent film. There's a lot that's changing.
100%.
Yeah.
So I have more fun question about Willy's, if that's okay, Liz, unless you want to keep on going.
Yeah, no, let's go back to Willy.
You're talking about how you really wanted to go for it with the gore in this film, and you really wanted to deliver on that because this is the kind of movie that you're making. Due to scheduling or timing, did you ever run into a situation where you had to cut any action or cut any gore from the movie, or did it all kind of make it in? And then if that was happening, how did you handle that?
No, it all made it in. I shot very specific. I shot to cut this movie. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room. I only could do two takes, possibly, maybe 3. So It had to be very precise.
And then for the gore, was a lot of the gore one take stuff? When you're having Nick bash the crap out of these animatronics, is it okay, the lighting's got to be perfect because we only got one of these guys to demolish.
That's right. We only had one each. Yep. So we had to know what we're doing.
And was there any time when you were doing that stuff that maybe you missed it or you had to fake it to do another take, or was it all the first takes made it in when you're bashing and squirting black oil and all that stuff?
We got, because we had 2 cameras with the black oil. We called it the rage cage. It would be we'd have the camera and we'd shoot it at 18 frames per second and shake the lens and then have lens flares going in. So our kind of style on how Nick takes out these creatures.
Did you ever have any problems with squibs or blood cannons not going off or oil cannons not going off in the right way? Or did they all kind of just work as they were supposed to?
Couple, but mostly worked fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every time I've done any of that, they never work. We'll test them. They'll work perfectly in the test. And then we'll go to shoot. And the first time we roll camera, it never works. And so on my movie, my first feature, we had one big, bloody, gory moment. And we had to do it 3 times until it exploded right. But we got it on the 3rd one. And so I was like, okay.
We had the blood cannon, it went well. There were a couple things, but we knew we had to get it. Or we only have 1 or 2 takes, so we had to be very precise.
I have a last Nicolas Cage question.
Okay.
Now that the film is about to be in the world, and it sounds like you had a very nice relationship in pre-production and production.
Yeah.
Does that just go away, or do you still talk, or is it he's with the film and now he's on to the next?
I think that's what it is. He's on to the next. I'll never forget, it was the last night him shooting, and he worked so hard. And it was the big fight with Willy. We wrapped late night, and he said he was leaving, and he said, "Good luck with your movie." And I just thought that was so amazing. Because he knows that as an actor, he did his performance and he's a producer on the movie, but it's not his movie. It's good luck with your movie, and I just thought that's Nick. He's such a team player.
I love that. It's sad though. There's something kind of bittersweet of that. You're like, okay, goodbye. See you later.
Yeah, I remember him. He just was going off into the night. It was like Ghost Rider, but he gave everything to this movie. He really did. He never waned once. He worked so hard.
Liz, do you have any final questions?
That was my I just want to hear about Nic Cage. I'm done.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. So we should get to our final 5 questions. What's the first film you ever made, and how do you feel about it now?
First movie was The Method, and it's angst, it's college angst. I was real young. It's got its big problems, but it'll always be in my heart because it's my first movie. And Sean Patrick Flannery, he helped get that movie done as well. He was a great team player. Shot it on film, went to Slam Dance with it.
Hey.
Yeah, I know, that was cool. That was the time the Day Trippers came out.
Oh yeah.
Steve Soderbergh was upset at Sundance because it didn't take Day Trippers, and so Slam Dance came and they showed it. So
wow.
What's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received?
I think the idea of stay true to yourself, and I interned for John McTiernan when I was in college. Yeah. And he would say things like that, it's funny because I interned for him on Last Action Hero, and then I interned for Rennie Harlan on Cutthroat Island.
Wow.
So stay true to yourself.
Do you have a goal as a filmmaker?
I want to tell great stories, entertain people.
Valid. Yeah.
Amazing.
Especially now with what's going on in this day and age with COVID and politics and everything. That's why I think Willy, I think Willy's is something that we need now. It's just leave your brain at the door and just let's have fun. And I was thinking about it too with COVID, that we're all in our homes, and we're scared of the virus and we're locked down and all this stuff. And here's this movie where you have Nic Cage coming in and he's getting terrorized by the creatures, and he doesn't care and he's going to town on them. And I thought maybe deep psyche, that's something to say, with COVID, what's going on. That's what we'd like to do to this bug, right? So
we should be so lucky that Nic Cage would come and save all of our asses.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, great.
If you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Gosh, it's a good question. Stay, for the long haul, because sometimes you don't know. You think things are going to happen, and they don't happen exactly what you think, what you want at that time. But you have to persevere and stay strong.
Last question: is making movies hard?
Yes, very. But if it wasn't, everybody would do it, right? So, there's a lot that goes into it. But yes, it's hard.
I have one more extra last question that I want to throw in
Sure.
here just to shake things up. You've had this long career. You've made all these movies. You're still going. You've got many more movies to make. But what advice would you give to like a younger filmmaker who's maybe made one or two features, or even just working on their first feature, and they're trying to figure out how to get the next project? Like, what would you say to that person?
I just want to clarify Alrik's question. He's asking, what advice would you give him? What would you tell Alrik?
That's funny. That's funny. You gotta just stay truthful to who you are. You know who you are, and you got to do projects that mean that mean a lot to you. And the idea is that you've got to stay strong. There's a lot of I thought that in film school they should do a class on, I say depression, but the idea of pass, right? What's called a class, it's called pass, because that's what you hear. Pass. I'm passing, and you have to stay strong. And saying no is very easy. The yes is hard, right? So you just have to know where you're at and keep the good fight. It's a fight. It is. Anything in life that's worth something is a fight.
Wow. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for that advice to Alrik.
Yes. Thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My secret, what should I do next? A question that is shrouded in another question. So if people want to, find out more about you, where should they go? Should they just go find Willy's Wonderland and watch the film, or do you have a website? Where should people go?
I have a Twitter, Kevin Lewis, Twitter, and Instagram, Kevin Lewis on Instagram, Movie Maker.
And then we should probably clarify, when is Willy's Wonderland coming out, and how can people see it?
February 12th, digital on demand.
Is it doing any kind of drive-ins or anything, or is it just demand for now?
They're talking about it. We'll see. They're talking about it.
It feels like the perfect drive-in movie. Like, what are they thinking? Oh my God. It's like, this is what it was made for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I'm sure it'll get one. I'm sure it will. Well, Kevin, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. I can't wait for you to see the movie. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts.
Wow.
I made this movie for fans like us of Nic Cage, and I'm a pop culture collector. I collect Star Wars and comic books, and
nice.
And I did this movie for us, the fans. I can't wait for everybody to check it out.
All right. Well, that was a fantastic conversation with Kevin. what was your favorite thing that Kevin said? Do you even remember? This was like 2 weeks ago.
I don't. I blocked out anything that's older than yesterday. I think in general, we've been noticing a trend. Filmmakers we've been interviewing talking about representation, and that sometimes I don't want to dedicate representation because we're going to have the amazing Ross Putman on the show in a few weeks, who is like a fantastic agent. But I think it's wonderful to hear that agents aren't the miracle workers that I thought they were, because in my mind, I thought that was what we're all supposed to be seeking. And Kevin just confirmed what we've been hearing for weeks, which is sometimes you don't need representation. Sometimes you can make opportunities happen yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I don't know if it was 3 or 4 in a row that all said that management did not have a big role in their success. You know, and then the Nelms brothers story of management is like epic and legendary. It's so great, you know, it's amazing. But it sounds like you just have to find the right people, and that's not like it's not like any representation is good. Even if they're at a fancy agency, it needs to be like the right person for the right filmmaker or the right artist. You know, and even then it sounds like a lot of the best opportunities don't even come from them necessarily. So it's kind of been
this question like a year ago, right? Didn't you, me, and like Matt Enlow talk about this? Was Oren there as well? And you were asking, you had someone approach you and you weren't sure whether you'd want to go forward.
Right.
I remember, and it's like that seems to be a frequent case, as people are like, do I chase after representation? Do I take the people who are interested in me? And it's like, absolutely exactly what you were saying. Unless they're going to fight for you and really understand what kind of content you want to make and who you are as an artist, it'll be something that may even slow you down.
Right. Like, they need to be really excited about what you're doing and like want to help you further develop like your I don't know, your filmmaking style, your filmmaking brand, or going after projects that are going to like help you grow in the thing that you do well, you know, not just pitch you on every project or things that don't make sense for you or that you'll never win because you don't have enough experience to do that project. Anyways, lots of other great things in that conversation that I love that I don't remember right now, but yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed it. But yeah, I think without further ado, again, Liz, do you have something for us this week?
Oh, gee, I do. We have a new Get Shorty. Come on, John Travolta, tell us all about it.
So you make movies, huh?
I produce feature motion pictures.
I got an idea for a movie.
This week, we have the first episode of a new web series from filmmaker and friend of the show, Nicole DeMenses. Damn it, I don't even know. Nicole, tell us.
I think it's DeMenses, probably.
But that E is tripping me up. I'm like, and Menses is like a very, like, that's like a tough name to live with as a woman for, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm kind of thinking to myself that she may emphasize that E. Anyway, if it's DeMenses, she's a badass woman, and I'm a little bit jealous that she gets to represent a monthly cycle on a daily basis. But if it's not, I'm sorry, Nicole. But we're here to talk about your wonderful series, Dating in the Zombie Apocalypse. Let's hear from Nicole, who will probably rip us to pieces in the pronunciation of her name. Let's hear her.
My name is Nicole DeMenses. I'm the writer-director of Dating in the Zombie Apocalypse. I have one of the stars of the film with me today. Come here, Sylvie. Come here. You can check out Sylvie. She's in our first episode of Dating in the Zombie Apocalypse, playing Sylvie. So why did I make the film? Well, because I wanted to. I love zombies, and I love women, and I love small dogs, and I thought I would just combine all three of those wonderful elements and make something fun and silly, and specifically and put it in a genre project. With most of my projects, funding projects specifically, it's whatever's in my pocket at the time, and I just come off of a project, so I had a little extra spending money, and I thought, well, I'm going to put $800 into a 2-day shoot and see what we come up with. This was shot a while ago. It was my second short film, and really had just come off working for the first time on a feature film. I was the second AD for a local production called Freshman Year, and there's some really talented people that I met on that, and then I convinced them to come work on this silly zombie project with me. Before making the short, I wasn't under any delusions of what would what the short would do for my career. It was a story I'd been writing, and I wanted to attempt to do it, and I had a couple of really great actors that were willing to go on the journey with me. And so it was really just, I wanted to do it for the experience, and just to add to, just to practice storytelling, practice collaborating, working with creative people. Well, now that the project's done, I've submitted to a few local festivals to get some community support and help get the word out there, and it'll be streaming on Lesflix February 15th. So it's really exciting to have it out there, and really for catered towards the audience I made it for. It's funny looking back on what would I do differently, if anything. And, it was a little overambitious. This original script was a lot longer. There was more gags, some more, definitely more characters. A little overly ambitious in a 2-day shoot with all the setups I wanted to do. But at the end of the day, simplifying it in the editing room and paring down what was really needed to tell the story about the characters. I'm still happy with what came out of it. But I will probably, just to have that fuller-fledged story get out there, there's plans for a digital comic to possibly be released. If you would want to know more of the backstories of the characters, there was a lot of exposition with the characters and where they came from, and their backstory before the world was taken over by zombies. And I always knew I wanted to do black and white, and specifically with the aspect ratio that I chose. It's more thinking back to that, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, and how they shot on 35 millimeter, and it was because of the copywriting issues, they were able to take that print and then show it at different drive-ins, and then eventually it made its way to television, where they downsized to a different format. So having the format that I did, it was specific, like the idea that you're watching this older genre film that has lesbian characters, and that it exists in the world as like this secret thing, and just taking up space in the genre. So I just playing with the style. I wanted people to at least have a point of reference to the older films. The idea that it was an older film, and that the filters and stuff used are the visual representation of that. It's kind of gritty and stuff like that. It's not pretty, and the idea that you could you stumbling across this old film that was forgotten, and, was a part of a time product of its time, when you wouldn't have expected to see something like that. Thanks for letting me talk about my silly project, and I just think the world needs more stories about lesbians, zombies, and little dogs. So I hope this checks all those boxes for people that want that content. So you can see all the other episodes on Lesflix February 15th. And thanks again for Making Movies Hard podcast, for giving me the opportunity to talk about my project. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Alrik, what did you think about dating in the zombie apocalypse?
So I'm a big fan of Twilight Zone. I just think it's just an amazing show, and like up there with like Star Trek, and like some of the best writing that exists in, sci-fi and, horror and all that stuff. So I love the opening. It's amazing. It's such a love letter to that. And it feels like, in a lot of ways, like it is the start of a Twilight Zone episode, or like a B movie from the 50s or 60s. It's just wonderful. I loved, like the characters. I thought they were very fun and different, especially Rocket was really really interesting. And just like, I love the way they introduced Rocket. They just have this character who's just, that's what she is. She's on, she's a skateboard or rollerblades or roller skates. I think roller skates, with like, that weapon. It's just, I think an axe. It's just great. And then of course, the lead, or the other lead in the short, is Natalia Dominguez from also in my feature film, The Alternate. So she's fantastic. She's always great. And there's this part in it where they're like the one character is like painting still art of zombies eating each other or something, and it's like, it was amazing. Or like two zombie kids like chewing on a zombie mother, and it's like, wow, like I've never seen that in a zombie movie after watching hundreds of zombie movies. Like I thought that was really fun, and it felt like a fresh, different take on the zombie apocalypse story. But yeah, what did you think, Liz?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was fun. I'm going to bring up some things that may be more neutral than positive, because again, I always think we're going to bring up whatever comes to the surface. But before I do, my favorite part of it was that it really nailed that vintage style. Like there were shots of that dog that were like off axis, where like the nose of the dog is cut off, or like whatever it is, like it wasn't in the center of the frame. And you're like, yeah, that's when you shoot film, you have to use like whatever available budget you have. Like it really reminded me of like low budget, like horror from, you know, the 50s. And I thought that was in the 40s and the 50s. That was very cool. Nailed the style. And there was like excess shots that again, like allied it with like old school filmmaking, where like the editing wasn't as streamlined as it is now. Like I just thought the style was nailed. I think what was tough for me is that Rocket was stylized, the film was stylized, the edit, the shooting, everything was stylized. But the other lead, the actress that you normally work with, wasn't stylized. Like she played it straight, and I was like, that tonally confused me, and I never got to see her face. Like I was always seeing Rocket's face, and I never got to see the other lead's face. It was always like profile or off angle, and I just wish I could get to know her a little bit more. And then also I just thought as a web series, it was missing a hook at the end, right? Like I wanted something to bring me into the next episode. I guess them going off on their own or going on a date wasn't enough for me to be like, I got to check out the next episode. So I definitely appreciated what I saw, but those are my criticisms, Nicole. I'm not getting you a free pass because you're a wonderful, generous Patreon, and we've had email back and forths, and I like you a lot. I'm still going to say things that I think are constructive, and those are those things.
Interesting. So you noticed there was no like straight on shot of Natalia throughout the whole piece. That's interesting.
I mean, there was in the beginning, right? When and by the way, I love anything that has female masturbation. So I was like, woo, yes, very big fan of that, because it's not something you see depicted on screen very often. But yeah, so in the opening, you see her front on, but in most of the coverage with Rocket, I think we're favoring Rocket. And and I wanted to be with Natalia because I thought she was our protagonist. So I missed that.
One thing I'll say that I think is a little bit of a missed opportunity is that the masturbation is interrupted by the dog, but it would have been so much better if the masturbation was interrupted by a zombie and that she was like irreverent towards the zombie interrupting her masturbation, like, you know, banging at the window or something. I know that she wanted to feature the dog and everything. I get that, but that's kind of what I was like, my nerd mind was expecting when she was masturbating, that like she would be interrupted like by the dog, like being, you know, chased by a zombie or somehow a zombie being a part of the interruption. And then that it was just the dog being hungry, which is like something that could happen in not the zombie apocalypse. So I don't know. I mean, small criticism. To speak to like your whole thing about the hook, like I see, it didn't have like a really big cliffhangery sort of end to it, except like that they're going to go on a date. But I think I was so intrigued by Rocket and by, you know, like Natalia played it straight, but I mean, she's like drawing zombies that are like there right really in front of her. So it's like, that's kind of like weird and bizarre in itself. And I don't know why, but I kind of appreciate that they have a straight person and, you know,
against the quirk.
Against the quirk. Yeah. And I think like having both and like those two coming together is like something that I enjoy. So like, I think if they were both quirky, like maybe I don't know. I wonder if it would work as well for me if they were both kind of goofy, over the top characters. But again, I will say that like her action of drawing those zombies makes her, the way that she walks around in this zombie apocalypse, it's just like, she didn't have a care in the world. It seems it's like, you know, that makes her weird among her, you know, just alone. So I don't know. I
don't
like
really
that.
See her like scared, right? Like, yeah,
no,
like she's running out of the house and she's just like bypassing that zombie who's trying to get her, right?
And she like just dodges it. Yeah. Like she's like not fazed at all by the what's going on. She's just living her life amongst the zombie apocalypse. It's almost like and I'm sure this is intentional, but it seems like it's a metaphor for the pandemic. You know, it's like we're in this world where we're wearing masks and we're not seeing people in person, and we're just going along with our lives, doing our jobs, like buying houses, whatever we do, you know, and like, our lives are continuing, but we're not like really addressing it head on. Just like, Talia's character is not addressing, the zombies head on. So yeah, anyway, I thought it was really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that I've ever seen, but I do really enjoy it. And I mean, yeah, it's enough where I want to watch the next episode. Would I pay for the next episode?
Oh,
I don't know, but I would watch it if it was on YouTube.
I would need more of a hook in order to pay for that second episode. But like you're saying, is it the greatest thing ever? No, but it's great enough that we want to celebrate it on this show, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
By virtue of like us wanting to talk about it, I think we want to make sure that other people check it out. And great job, Nicole.
Well, I'm interested if other people feel the way that you do, Liz, if other people feel like the hook's not strong enough, or if like the overall visual style, the characters and what's been delivered as far as, just the artistic representation of the show, if that's enough to get people into the second episode. But I think that it is going to be on a paid service. I don't think it's going to be just for free the rest of the show, I think. Because I know she said she's releasing it through some sort of channel or something, but maybe it's just going to be on the channel for free. I'm not sure, but
she's always really good about that, right? Like we know that she's really good at collaborating with different promotional partners and platforms.
It's like one of the big things that I'm sure she'll talk about it, or she had already talked about it, but like she's really, she feels like you're basically doing yourself a disservice as an artist if you're giving your films away online. Like she says, oh, well, someone's going to pay for it. Someone's going to like help you monetize the short. But I argue that that's not always what's most important. I feel like, especially as a burgeoning artist, it's more important for people to see your work than it is for, you to get paid 5 cents per view or a cent per view or whatever, like, I don't think it's really about making money at the short level necessarily. But there's I don't know, it also brings prestige too, I think, like to have your stuff on paid platforms. It's just not the way that I decide to go. But I don't know. I think both work as well. It definitely, I think having it on a paid platform is much better than not having it available at all. I have a lot of friends who don't have their work available at all. It's like they get into fancy film festivals, they go fancy places, and then they don't go anywhere else except like maybe it's shown on PBS once or, whatever. You can watch
Get that online. Get it on Vimeo. Get it on YouTube.
For real. That's how I feel. Anyways, I think it's time because, you've got mail, Liz, or I've got mail.
We've got mail.
We've got mail.
Breath catches in my chest until I hear 3 little words. You've got mail.
So yeah, I just wanted to start this off by saying thanks to everyone who sent in Get Shorties this week. We got a lot of Get Shorty, suggestions, and some people who are even like, "Oh, my filmmaking friend is like so great, but they never submit." I tell them to submit to Making Movies Hard, but they never submit their stuff. So I'm going to submit their stuff for them. So I appreciate everyone. Charnstar was the one who did that. Thank you, Charnstar. Much appreciated. But yeah, we got a whole new slew of YouTube comments this last week, mostly from our loyal listener and good friend of the show, Gary Kennedy, who will not stop commenting on YouTube, which I love. On our Anna Biller episode, he said, "The Love Witch is such a ridiculously beautiful film." What a wonderful comment.
Anna Biller.
Anna, God, just kill me now. Sorry, Anna Biller.
She's not listening. She told us she doesn't listen.
Yeah. Fine. Right. Sorry, Anna. We also got a comment on that same episode from Daniel saying, "I am here because for Anna Biller," which is like such a strong statement. Thank you for being here for Anna, and hopefully you stick around.
And speaking of Anna Biller, we have to say that this is amazing kismet that Anna Biller is the special guest of the Joe Bob Briggs Valentine's Day special. So it's like 2 worlds collide, 2 wonderful worlds are colliding on the drive-in, and I'm really excited to check that out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that one because it's like we had Joe Bob Briggs on the show, which was like, a totally amazing moment for us. And then a guest of our show also gets to go on Joe Bob's show. It's like, wow, pretty amazing. Yeah. Going back to our YouTube comments, on our newest episode with the Nelm brothers, Gary says, good old Gary Kennedy again, Another great episode. Fat Man was such a crazy flick, and I can't imagine that anyone would have brought the proper tone to screen than those two. Kyle freaking Kenyon, by the way. Kyle Short was pretty great too. Thanks, Carrie. And now all I can think of is a short film about a counterfeit exorcist. I don't know where that came from. Do we talk about a counterfeit exorcist at all in either
I'm wondering
of those
if
things?
it's in Dad Pals. Is there a reference to a counterfeit exorcist?
There must be. He also says the new order of segments has a good feel to it. Keep up the great work.
Oh, Gary. Well, let us know what you meant by counterfeit exorcist, because we want to know. We want to know, Gary.
I mean, there's so much dialogue in that Dad Pals episode that goes so fast. You know, it's so snippy. There's probably some line about a counterfeit exorcist in that, most likely. I also wanted to say we're coming up on our 300th episode. Woo! And I thought it would be fun if Liz and I finally answered those final 5 questions that we ask everybody every week. Are you guys into that? Liz, are you into that? Will you answer those questions?
I'll do it. Yeah, I have to look at them because I never read them unless we're on the show, and I will prepare. It's kind of like the James Lipton thing where I assume everyone prepares what those answers are before talking to, not that we're James Lipton, but I want to treat us with the gravitas of that experience. Yeah, I'm down. The point is I'm down.
Do you have any other ideas for our 300th episode? Anything else you want to do when we hit 300?
I think we should we reveal who our 300th guest is?
Yes,
or is that a surprise?
I think, Liz, what do you think? Do you want to reveal it on the next week's episode? Since
Let's
we're
do next
2
week.
episodes?
That's a nice little sneak peek. I think we should have a party. I think we should have fireworks. I think we should socially distanced celebrate the 300th episode. That's a very big deal, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, you've done 100 of them, 120 of them, something like that.
I think so, but I don't know if you feel this way, Alrik, but I actually feel like we're starting to take off a little bit now. I am noticing more engagement on Instagram. I'm feeling we're getting more emails into our inbox. I just feel like there's this new momentum to the show, and I don't know. I think there's going to be 400 episodes, 500 episodes. This is not the end. This is just the beginning.
As long as you stick with me, Liz, I'll do this until I die. So as long as you don't quit, this show will never end because I am so fucking stubborn. I will not stop anything as long as I can keep it doing it. It would have to be like everything around me would crumble. No more listeners. We only have one listener.
It's
you
me.
Quit.
I'm the listener.
Yeah. If you quit and became our one listener and it was just me doing the show, then maybe I'd stop the show.
You'd still do it.
Probably still do it. Anyways, very exciting. Also, special thank to our newest Patreon patron, Nicole DeMenses, who's already mentioned on the show. Thank you so much for giving us the love. That's just fantastic. Liz, you can cut this out if you want, but do you want to say that she wasn't on the show because she was?
I had concerns. I was like, oh, Nicole just became a Patreon. Thank you so much, Nicole. I was so grateful. And then I was like, oh, Nicole submitted it against Shorty. Now it's going to seem like pay to play, right? That you have to become a patron to be on the show. But also, first of all, Nicole's film was good. Right? Her short was good. So that's
great. Yeah. This has happened 3 times or maybe 4 times. And one time it happened we got them on the show and then they became a Patreon after they were on the show. And a couple times it's happened where they've sent things in and then they immediately become a patron and then we get them on the show. But I will just stress that I would not bring anybody on the show whose work I didn't like. And in Nicole's case, I was planning on, getting back to her and having her on the show before she became a patron. Yeah. So it definitely is not a correlation. So don't think that that's all it takes to get on the show because it also takes work that's interesting.
I'm glad that you have morals because honestly, I would be right now, I'd be like, hey, here's a way to get on the show. Pay us $10 and we'll talk about your movie and then we'll be able to edit the show. So, you're upholding the ethical standard of our show. But if it were if it were my decision, I would just exploit the hell out of this.
No. You will not just be, if you have a short film you want to be featured on the show, it doesn't just take a $9 contribution in order to get on the show. That's not how it works, people. I promise you, that is not the way it works.
But thank you, Nicole. We appreciate everything
Nicole's
you've done.
also like she's like a filmmaking homie, man. She's like one of the, big time Bay Area filmmakers who are actively making movies, and she does a lot for the community. She hosted this, this online event last year during the pandemic where we had this big, it was like the Filmmaker Fiesta. It's like a 3-hour event online that I was a part of. She's doing a lot to like really, help and grow the community. So yeah, Nicole's awesome. I'm actually really impressed with her output as a filmmaker. She seems to keep on making stuff. So I can't wait to see what she makes next. And I hope it's a feature. Nicole,
Woohoo!
What I have learned in the last 5 years or so doing this show is that I should be making features when I was making shorts, and that I shouldn't have made 7 short films. That I should have made 1 short film just to get comfortable. And then everything else after that should have been a feature. That's what I've learned.
Can I speak to that in a way that you can cut it out very easily if it's not interesting?
Sure.
I'm taking this rewrite course and I'm like obsessed with it because I'm learning all about like the organizing idea and the shadow idea and all these different terminology that I didn't know before. And I'm like reevaluating the features that I made. And I'm like, wow, they could have been way more emotionally satisfying had I made sure the script was there and all these things that I didn't do because I was rushing to make the feature, right? So I think there's something to be said about you'll get more traction with the feature, but it also will live with you for so much longer that all the mistakes you made are going to haunt you for the rest of your life. I don't think that was helpful. I'm just acknowledging that's what I'm going through right now.
Well, that's interesting because the shorts live with you too. I made Strange Thing in 2012 when I started making it, and I released it in 2014. And that movie is online, and a lot of my friends and family and people who know me, like that's still their favorite thing that I've done. And I've made like 6 other things since then. And, so that one will always be a part of my background. But I guess the stakes are just so much lower, although I spent a lot of money on it, but it was not, it wasn't, over $100,000. It was like $20,000, but still it's like
still a lot of money.
Still a lot of money.
That's a car. That's a really nice car, actually. That's a good car.
If you took all my short films, like if you took out Strange Thing and you took the rest of them, it was probably enough to make a feature, if I had not made any of the other ones, But then on the other hand, it's hard to say because Brother has now been adapted into a feature-length script by a friend of mine that I'm like, we're working on now, and that might be my second feature potentially. And so like, would that feature-length script exist the way it is now if I hadn't made the short, So maybe the short needed to exist in order for this feature version to get made. And now I already have a proof of concept for the feature that I made 5 years ago that I can use to sell the feature. I don't know. Maybe there's good things to shorts too. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm just learning more and more that the script is the thing, and the script is actually the most important thing.
Yeah.
And like looking back at Dad Pals, that was like so clever and so enjoyable. And it could have been shot with an iPhone. I wouldn't have cared. It could have been shot with like, a high 8 camera. I wouldn't have cared. Right. So that's where I'm at right now is like my obsession over structure and really making something emotionally satisfying before you go to production.
I took 6 years to write the alternate, man.
Yeah.
Like, and 15 or 16 drafts or whatever it was, and so it's just like I feel like that time was really important for me because I'm not that strong of a writer and I needed that time to get it right, and I know other people who are better writers who can write a more fleshed out, like satisfying movie in a lot shorter time. Like Brother took probably a year to write, off and on. So I don't know. Who knows? I also just know that I need to write more because I think that like, even if I'm not going to make that movie next or whatever, like I just need to be constantly writing something in order to like keep that creative part of me going, because it'll just help, whatever I work on next. And then also I'll have more stuff to work on in the future. Anyways, I think we should get to our final things here. So, you have an opportunity to be like Nicole and Gary. You could go on Patreon at patreon.com/MMIH podcast and give what you can. Thank you in advance for being able to give something if you can. And then if you want to send us a question, comment, or suggestion, you can go to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. And if you really, really love the show, you can leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or any of the other places you can read reviews for podcasts. And then if you could be like Gary Kennedy, you can go on YouTube and you can leave a comment there. And you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MMIH Podcast, and YouTube at Making Movies is Hard Podcast.
And finally, thank you to Kevin Lewis and Greg Longstreet for making this episode possible. I'm at Liz Manischel Film on Instagram, Liz Manischel on Twitter, and I'm actually growing. I'm like 30 from 2,000 followers. So thank you to all of you. I think that actually there were a few in there from the listeners. So thank you very much for following me, and I'll follow you back. Alrik, where are you?
I am Alrik B on Twitter and Instagram. Yes, go to those places to find me.
And finally, check out our website, makingmoviesishard.com, where you can find links to the things we talked about on this episode. Thank you to editor Alrik.
Yes.
Alrik.
Yes.
Thank you to editor Alrik for doing all the editing and for being an Alrik. Thank you, Alrik, for being Alrik and for being an editor. And thanks to everyone for listening, and talk to all of y'all next week.
I have served on 7 feature films.
Done a great representation, because we're going to have the amazing Ross Putman. Damn it, I'm going to do it. Okay, sorry.
Boom. Podcast.